Tonight on 24 Frames, we take a look back at some of our favorite stories from this season, including artist Dirk Fowler and his search for the perfect poster. You'll hear from comic book artist Will Terrell and how he draws happiness every day. Plus, we'll look back at the history of 24 Frames, how it started, and where it's going. And you'll hear from Tori Atchison in our South Plains session. 24 Frames starts right now. KTTZ TV Channel 5 presents 24 Frames, taking you inside music, art, and entertainment in the Hub City and beyond. Welcome to 24 Frames. I'm your host, Paul Hunton. Perfection in craft is something that many have strived for, but few have accomplished. Earlier this year, nationally renowned poster artist Dirk Fowler told us how he probably won't ever make the perfect poster, but he's going to have a lot of fun trying.
For some reason, I've always loved the poster just as a form of advertising and as an ephemeral item that people don't throw away. You know, people like to hang on to posters. I like that idea of producing something that people collect or they want to hang on to.
Years are the only time you age. It's so
I grew up listening to a lot of really old country music. Was raised by my grandparents, and just music was always in our house and kind of a part of the family. I was in some really bad bands when I was in college, and making music posters just sort of became a way for me to carry on being in the music world and combining that with other things I loved, art and posters in general. I had some friends that were in bands, and basically I got started by just asking them, hey, you know, can I make a poster for your show? And they were totally into it. You know, of course you can. I would make a poster for one show. They would open for somebody bigger, and they would say, hey, make a poster for this show, and that band would see it, and hey, that's a cool poster, who made that? And then I started getting hired by bigger and bigger bands, and without really a plan, I became a poster artist. I got into graphic design because I like making things with my hands. I like drawing, I like making art. The letterpress gives me that ability to get, you know, back to basics a little bit. So my style has evolved, and it's become more simple, or like really bold, simple shapes and colors. And the letterpress restricts me in many ways. I can't do the things I could do with a computer, and I really like that. I usually start with my sketchbook, trying to come up with an idea, sketch it out by hand. Then I hopefully get an idea that I feel like I can develop. At that point, I'll scan it, refine it on the computer. Then I usually print a template, and from that I'll glue it to the surface that I use for printing, and I hand cut that image, then put it on the press, apply ink, and print, repeat 300 times depending on how many I have to make. But I think that people can see the difference. There's something really, you know, very tactile. You can feel the ink on my posters. You can see the texture of the ink. I could print 100 posters, and there aren't going to be any identical. They're all individual because I print each one by hand. People can tell the difference, I think, and they like that. Again, in this digital world we live in, I think more and more people are searching for that thing that was touched by a human hand.
Everybody has a definition of great art. What's your definition of great art?
You know, that's probably the most difficult question you could ask me. I think great art, I don't know about great, but for me, it has to be something that moves me somehow. I have to have some attachment, some emotional attachment to it. Though I like a lot of really simple imagery, I I just need to be intrigued. I really don't know why I'm obsessed with making posters, but I just feel like I need to keep doing it. I haven't made the perfect poster yet, which I don't think exists, thank goodness, because that hopefully means I can keep doing them forever.
Another great artist that we sat down with this season was comic book artist Will Terrell. Will has had some great successes in his career, but the real story is how he found his passion, picked up a sketchbook, and has been drawing happiness ever since.
I always drew, even as a little kid. I didn't, it was just what I did, but I wasn't really that great at it. More importantly, I always told stories. I just didn't know you could do that for a living until after I got out of high school. A friend of mine had asked me to write a story for him to draw, and I wanted to be a writer. I had no intention of actually being a comic book artist, but I found out pretty early on it's hard to get artists to finish things. And so I decided if I'm going to work with an artist, it might as well be me. And you know, it takes a doctor 10 years to become a doctor. It takes a lawyer 10 years to become a lawyer. So if it takes me 10 years to learn how to draw, then I'm going to learn how to draw and have fun doing it. And so it took a while, and eventually I got to where people would pay me to do artwork, and then now I'm putting it together with actually telling stories. And I mean, I would imagine whole worlds like hidden within our own world, and I loved that idea that you could create the space and let other people experience it through your stories. I've always found that fascinating. One thing I experienced with doing art in West Texas is there aren't a lot of resources for being a cartoonist. You know, you can't exactly go get a degree in it at one of the schools here. So I found it hard to learn how to do that, and I would have to travel all over the country to meet other artists and learn how they learned how to draw and how they developed those skills as a storyteller. In 2005, I actually lived in California for about 8 months, and I went to an art school there briefly. And I got to draw with other cartoonists, just sitting down and drawing people in public. And it became like a team effort where they're just trying to, you know, outdo each other, but then by doing that, making each other better artists. And I learned more in that time period than I did in the 10 years of trying to teach myself before that. I still do that. I still go draw people at coffee shops and restaurants and Walmart. As I developed those skills myself, I decided I would like to pass that on to other people, you know, and the only reason it wasn't where I live is because nobody had stopped and created it. And so I decided, well, that's an opportunity. And I started teaching other people through my stories and through just one-on-one interaction how to be creative and use their creativity to make art and have a voice. And I'm still learning how to do that, how to teach people that, and how to do it myself. And I started doing it with videos and with books and lots of different resources. I started the Lubbock Sketch Club in 2006, and we started with just 3 artists. And within about a year, we had up to 60 artists every week, sometimes even more than that. I learned a lot of techniques on how to help artists overcome obstacles. And so I've started putting those lessons into YouTube videos and letting people teach themselves all over the world. And recently passed 11,000 subscribers, which I'm pretty happy about. I'm glad to have that many people want to see these videos and pass them on to other people. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, when you smiling.
It's one of the only storytelling mediums where one creative person can put their vision out there and let it be their vision. Whereas if you've got a movie, it's like trying to paint with an army. You know, it can never truly be one person's vision because there's so many other people contributing to it. But with comics, it's such a unique medium that, you know, only one person starts it and finishes it. You know, they do the whole process by themselves. And I'm intoxicated by that whole idea. One of my comics is called Super Zeros, and I did it as a webcomic for about 2 years. And it's about a group of high school kids that are super zeros. They got superpowers, but they have no common sense. They basically take slacking to superhero proportions. It was an experiment on teaching myself how to write, because even though I started off as a writer in high school, deciding I wanted to write comics, as soon as I started doing the art, I started getting a lot of critiques on how much I didn't know how to draw. And so I stopped writing for the longest time and started teaching myself how to draw. And it's only been in the last 3 or 4 years that I started writing again and learning how do you tell a story that makes people want to stick around and enjoy it. Recently I did a book called Owls of the Ironwork Isle. It's a steampunk story set in Victorian England about a group of secret agents that find out that somebody's trying to steal London, and they have to find out who and stop them before it's too late. One good cartoon with a strong visual picture and a punchline can do more for an issue than a whole editorial essay. And that's the power of storytelling with comics and with art. It used to be comics were just for kids, that was the idea. And then the comic industry as a whole stopped making comics for kids because they wanted to prove how grown up they were. But now it's healthy. It's a healthy market now where there's comics for everybody out there. I mean, there's comics about, growing older. There's comics about, learning how to deal with death, and as a human. It's not just about people in tights anymore. It can be about anything. Doing comic books and being a storyteller as a long-term thing. Like, my goal is for me to be a successful storyteller by the end of my life. So I've just got to put in the work and keep learning and keep making mistakes and having little successes between now and then. But someday I'll get it right and I'll tell a story that is worth telling.
And now it's time for 24 Frames Trivia. What could act as an alternate title for the movie Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire? Is it A, Umbridge is Evil, B, Snape befriends a Muggle, C, The Year They Forgot to Hire a Barber, or D, Dumbledore shaves his beard? The answer when we return to 24 Frames.
Where you belong. We all want to find others that share things in common with us. So we begin the journey to find a connection. Someone that we can relate to and can relate to us. All bound together by a common thread. It may not seem like much at first, but as things come into focus, we find ourselves as part of something powerful. Something greater than ourselves. We're here. Let's connect.
So what could act as an alternate title for the movie Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire? The answer is C, The Year They Forgot to Hire a Barber. In 2005's Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, director Mike Newell chose to change up the hairstyles of many of the main characters, including Harry, Ron, Fred and George, and even Neville, leaving them all with much shaggier hair than they had previously. And now, back to 24 Frames.
Welcome back. 24 Frames originally debuted in the summer of 2012. I created the show for one reason, to showcase art, filmmaking, and music in West Texas. When I moved to Lubbock in 2011, the one thing I was most impressed by was the great atmosphere and community that surrounded the arts in Lubbock. It was my goal to create a show that highlighted the passion and enthusiasm that the Hub City had for the arts, and thus 24 Frames was born. You got it on? Turn it on! Hello, giant guy with an afro. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I like your hair.
Thank you. I eat that often.
Awesome.
There's a new Wes Anderson film coming out.
Yes, Moonrise Kingdom, and I am glad you brought that up. We were just arguing and we were going over the summer movies, and they said Moonrise Kingdom, and I said no one's going to know about that.
I knew about it.
He's
my guy.
He's awesome, and it looks great. It's been a long journey, and frankly, it seems like it's been a lot longer than a year. Over that time, the show has evolved. When we first started out, we weren't particularly sure of how everything would work out. There's a lot that goes into television production, and we wanted to make sure that the show was worthy of the arts that it profiled. We've heard from many of you over the last year, and we are forever grateful for your feedback, excitement, and interest in our little PBS program. We started by focusing strongly on film and filmmaking. We quickly realized that while there were a lot of filmmakers in Lubbock doing great work, there were a lot more hardworking artists who deserved coverage. We hooked up with local filmmakers Daniel Ballard and Jonathan Seaborn of Cabo Tuava Films to showcase their segment, the South Plains Sessions, showcasing intimate performances by local West Texas artists. That segment has become a fan favorite, and from there, the show expanded and changed. The technical aspects got better and better. But it wasn't just the technical aspects that changed with the show. We changed our whole theory in how we decided to tell stories. You see, we didn't feel like you needed me to guide you along with narration, but that the artists responsible for the art and for the music were fully capable and better at telling their stories than I ever could. That was just one of the small things that changed. Producer Dusty Dean came onto the show and changed the actual look of everything. Now we have a different graphics package that we got a great positive response from, and we feel just makes the show have a better overall, more modern feel. We continue to change, we continue to grow, and we continue to find great stories. And that's really the key to 24 Frames. We've always felt like at some point it could be possible that we're short on stories, and then lo and behold, something always comes up. We always meet a new person, find a new story to tell. And we've expanded that. We've gone from just music and art, and we've dived into different cultures and different things going on in this area. We're all West Texans, we're all part of the same culture, but there's all these little subcultures that we're getting involved in. You have the Plainview Art Walk that has its own unique look and its own unique feel, different from the Lubbock First Friday Art Trail. You have musicians who are playing Texas country, but you also have musicians like ones we featured, Veda Moon and Lenora Soul, who have a very laid-back rock vibe to them. And so you have all these different types of things going on in West Texas and in Lubbock. And so our goal on 24 Frames is to capture those stories and share them. Because it's so important that people share their stories, share their art, share their music, so that we can all come to understand each other. And I know that sounds kind of philosophical and a little heady, but it's true. The more we understand each other, the more that we let each other in and understand each other's cultures and art and what people are passionate about, then the better our society and culture and towns and cities and villages and states and country can become. And the show continues to change. Coming up this next year in 2014, you're going to see a lot of different changes. You're going to see a lot of new stories that really excite you. One thing we've started doing with artist Joe Garnett would be the first, is we're serializing some stories. So his story's coming in 2 parts so that you see some of it in one episode, and then you have to tune in again to see it in another. And no, that's not just a desperate reach for ratings. That's a way to truly tell people's stories, because there's a lot of stories out there that can't be told in 2 to 3 minutes or 2 to 5 minutes. They need more time. And so we want to give that to them to share their stories, and we want to give that to you, the viewer, to understand and learn about each other. So there's a lot of changes coming. We're very excited about it. One thing we've really been excited about is all the great responses we've got, not only from viewers, but from colleagues and from peers across the state. 24 Frames was recently nominated for a Lone Star Emmy, which was fantastic. And it's not a representation or an ego boost to us. What it is a representation of how much people have cared about this show, not only on this side of the camera, but on that side too. I don't know, what do you think?
And now it's time for 24 Frames Trivia. How many actors have played Batman in a live-action movie on the big screen? Is it A, 7, B, 4, C, 9, or D, 10? The answer when we return to 24 Frames.
Funding for this program is provided by Mr. Tom's Hair Salon and Day Spa. Mr. Tom's is located at 3630 50th Street and is open 6 days a week. Mr. Tom is a proud sponsor of Channel 5. More information is available at mrtomsalon.com or 806-792-4363.
So how many actors have played Batman in a live-action movie on the big screen? Batman has been portrayed by 7 actors on the big screen, starting in 1943 and going through 2012. Ben Affleck has been cast to take over the mantle in Zack Snyder's follow-up to Man of Steel in 2015. Now, back to the show.
My head is dedicated to the ground. You speak dedicated to the sound. Repeat your body. Shadows fall. Secrets crawl. Light flashes round. You're in the ground. You've become your own gun. Triggers on and life is gone. You will fly that buildings high. Devils talk. Angels walk. You've become your own